If you've typed the apology but can't press send, if you've rehearsed the conversation 100 times in the shower but still can't look them in the eye, this is for you. After I messed up, after the silence became unbearable, after I wanted to disappear completely, God showed me how to heal. Not through some lightning bolt moment or viral testimony, but through the slow, terrifying work of restoration. The kind that requires you to stop hiding. The kind that makes meekness feel like the bravest thing you've ever done. I'm going to walk you through what that looked like for me. A gentle plan when you feel paralyzed. One courage step you can actually take today. A prayer that names what you're too afraid to say out loud, and a practice that rebuilds trust one small faithfulness at a time. Because here's what I've learned. God's path isn't humiliation or exile, it's restoration. And restoration, I discovered, always begins in the middle of the night when you're staring at words you can't unsend and wondering if you'll ever be okay again. It's 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Your phone screen glows blue in the darkness, casting shadows across your bedroom ceiling. The apology text sits there in the message box. 17 drafts condensed into 8 careful sentences. You've stripped out every excuse, but you have to understand, every attempt to soften what you did. What remains is just the truth, raw, undefended, terrifying. Your thumb hovers over the send button. It's been hovering there for 11 minutes now. You can feel your heartbeat in your fingertips. The cursor blinks, blinks, blinks. Each pulse seems to ask the same question. What if they don't reply? What if they do? You lock the screen. The room plunges into darkness. You set the phone face down on the nightstand like you're putting distance between yourself and your own cowardice. Tomorrow, you tell yourself. Maybe tomorrow you'll be brave enough. But tomorrow has been coming for 3 weeks now, and you're still here, alone in the dark, carrying the weight of what you can't undo and can't confess. The fallout didn't happen all at once. That's what makes it worse somehow. The slow unraveling, the incremental losses you tried to pretend weren't happening. First, it was the group chat. You'd send a message and the little dots would appear, then disappear. Appear. Disappear. Eventually, they just stopped appearing at all. The conversation would flow around you like water around a stone, jokes, plans, prayer requests. But when you contributed, there'd be this pause. Not long enough to call out, but long enough to feel. That's when you started scrolling back through the chat history, looking for the exact moment things changed. You found it, the day after. The message you sent trying to act normal, and the 11 minutes of silence before someone finally responded with a thumbs up emoji. Just a thumbs up. No words. That's when you knew. Then Sunday happened. You walked into the church foyer the way you always did, scanning for familiar faces, ready to hug necks and ask about people's weeks. But Sarah, who always saved you a seat, who texted you prayer requests at random hours, who called you family, saw you coming and suddenly remembered she needed to check on her kids in the nursery. She wasn't even subtle about it. She made eye contact, registered your face, and turned. Just turned. Walked the other direction like you were a stranger. Like you were less than a stranger. Like you were someone to avoid. You stood there in the middle of the foyer, coffee cup trembling in your hand, trying to decide if you should follow her. Text her. Pretend you didn't notice. You chose option 3. You pretended. You sat 3 rows farther back than usual, alone, and spent the entire worship set staring at the back of her head, wondering if she could feel your eyes on her, wondering if she even cared. The worst part isn't the public avoidance. It's the private replay. It's 3 a.m. and your brain won't shut off. You're lying there in the dark, and suddenly you're back in that moment. The exact conversation, the exact words that came out of your mouth, the look on their face when you said it. You can see it in high definition, the way their expression changed, the way they went quiet, the way they nodded slowly, said okay, and left. No yelling, no dramatic exit, just disappointment. And somehow that's worse than anger would have been. Anger you could have fought against, disappointment you just have to absorb. So you lie there, replaying it, rewinding and playing it again, thinking of all the things you should have said instead, all the ways you could have been gentler, kinder, slower to speak. But you can't go back. You can only lie there in the wreckage and count the cost. Your chest feels tight most days now. Not in an emergency room way, but in a low-grade, constant way that makes you forget what normal breathing feels like. You'll be at work, answering emails, and suddenly you'll have to excuse yourself to the bathroom just to put your hands on your knees and remember how to inhale. The shame sits on your sternum like a weight. It follows you to the grocery store, to the gas pump, to every mundane corner of your life. You check your phone compulsively, even though you're dreading notifications. You scroll through their social media to make sure they're okay, then feel like a creep for doing it. You type texts and delete them. Type and delete. Type and delete. Hey, can we talk? Delete. I'm so sorry. Delete. I know you're probably done with me, but delete. None of it sounds right. None of it sounds like enough. You start avoiding places. The coffee shop where you used to meet. The park where you'd walk and talk about life and theology and nothing in particular. Even your own church feels like enemy territory now. You show up late and leave early. You take the side entrance. You sit near the exit. You skip small group because you can't bear the thought of someone asking, "How are you really?" and having to choose between lying or unraveling in front of everyone. So you isolate. You tell yourself it's giving them space. But really you're just hiding from their pain, hiding from your guilt, hiding from the mirror that shows you who you became in that moment when you chose your comfort over their dignity. The phone becomes your enemy and your obsession. You check the message thread 40 times a day. Read receipts are on so you know they've seen your last text. The one where you said, "I'd really like to talk when you're ready." 3 weeks ago. Seen. No reply. You stare at their profile picture and wonder what they're thinking. If they hate you. If they've already moved on. If they talk about you with other people. What they say, how they frame what happened. Whether you're the villain in someone else's story now. You imagine the conversations, the careful questions from mutual friends. So what happened with you and their measured response, trying to be gracious but unable to hide the hurt. The thought makes you nauseous. You scroll through old photos on your phone. The two of you laughing at that conference. The group dinner where everything felt easy and light. The inside jokes. The late-night conversations. The way they used to text you random thoughts in the middle of the day because they knew you'd get it. All of it feels like evidence of something you destroyed. You think about deleting the photos, but you can't bring yourself to do it. So they just sit there in your camera roll, artifacts of a friendship you don't know how to repair. You zoom in on their face in one picture, looking for some hint of the fracture to come. But all you see is joy. Uncomplicated, trusting joy. The kind you took for granted until it was gone. Your self-image fractures in slow motion. You always thought of yourself as a good person. Kind. Thoughtful. Someone who cared about others. But if you're all those things, how did this happen? How did you say something so careless, so cutting, so completely divorced from love? The dissonance is unbearable. You start questioning everything. If I did that, what else am I capable of? You replay other conversations, other relationships, looking for patterns, wondering how many people you've hurt without even realizing it, wondering if you've been fooling yourself all along about who you are. The ground feels unsteady. You don't trust your own judgment anymore. You don't trust your words. You barely trust your own thoughts. Even worship feels accusatory now. You'll be in church, hands raised, singing about God's goodness, and the lyrics land wrong. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, that saved a wretch like me. Wretch. The word sticks. You feel it in your bones, not in the theological, we're all sinners way, but in the visceral, I am specifically a wretch right now way. The song becomes a mirror, and you don't like what you see. Every sermon about integrity, every illustration about loving your neighbor, every call to Christ-likeness feels like a personal indictment. You shrink in your seat. You avoid the altar. You slip out during the last worship song so no one can ask you to pray with them because you're not sure you can pray with a straight face anymore. God feels far. Not because he left, but because you feel disqualified. How do you come to him with dirty hands? How do you pray when you're the one who caused the harm? Your prayers become performances, scripted, careful, empty. You ask for forgiveness, but you don't feel forgiven. You ask for wisdom, but you don't feel wise. You ask for peace, but peace feels like something you don't deserve yet. So you stop praying much at all. You skim your Bible in the morning out of habit, but the words slide off like water off glass. Nothing sticks. Nothing penetrates. You feel spiritually numb, and the numbness feels like judgment. 3 weeks in, you're sitting at your kitchen table at 2 a.m. again. The house is silent. Everyone else is asleep. You've got your Bible open in front of you, not because you're expecting anything, but because you don't know what else to do. You flip through it aimlessly. Psalms, Proverbs, the Gospels. Nothing feels relevant. Then you remember someone mentioned Galatians once in a conversation about grace and community. You flip there. Chapter 6. Your eyes land on verse 1, and you stop. You read it once. Then again. Out loud this time, your voice hoarse in the empty kitchen. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such an one, in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Restore, not punish, not exile, not cancel. Restore. The word sits in the air like a question. You whisper it, restore. It feels impossible. You've been operating on a completely different assumption, that you're done, that they're done with you, that this is just the consequence you have to live with. But this verse suggests something else. It suggests a path back. Not an easy one, not a quick one, but a path. And it's paved with something you don't hear much about anymore. Meekness. You roll the word around in your mind. Meekness, not weakness, not groveling, but something else. Something you don't fully understand yet, but desperately need to learn. You read the verse again, slower this time, paying attention to every word. Ye which are spiritual, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness. Spiritual people, people who've been broken and healed, people who know what grace tastes like, are supposed to restore the fallen, not with harshness, not with an "I told you so," but with meekness. And then the verse does something unexpected. It turns the mirror back on the restorer. Considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Translation: don't get arrogant. Don't forget that you're one bad day, one unguarded moment, one unchecked impulse away from being exactly where they are. Stay humble, stay soft, because grace is for everyone, and you're included in everyone. Something loosens in your chest. Not relief, exactly. Not absolution. Just a crack. A hairline fracture in the certainty that you're beyond repair. You sit with the verse for a long time, letting it breathe. And then, so quietly you almost don't hear it, something whispers in the silence. Not audible, not external, but unmistakable. Child, I am not finished with you. Restoration is still an option. You don't know if it's God or just your desperate hope talking, but either way, it lands like water on dry ground. You feel tears prick the corners of your eyes. You didn't realize how thirsty you were for permission to try again, for a hint that maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end of your story. You wipe your eyes with the back of your hand, close the Bible, and sit in the dark for a long time, just breathing, just feeling the weight shift slightly, not gone, but different. You look at your phone on the table. The screen is dark. The apology is still sitting there in drafts, unsent, waiting. Your thumb hovers over the power button. You could open it. You could read it one more time. You could, maybe, press send. But the fear rushes back. What if it makes things worse? What if they read it and decide I'm not worth the effort? What if I pour my heart out and get silence in return? The questions swarm like bees, and you lock the phone again without opening it. Not tonight. You're not ready tonight. But something's shifted. You don't delete the draft. You don't talk yourself out of it. You just leave it there. And that, you realize, is something. That's a start. The voice that said restoration is still an option didn't demand immediate action. It just opened a door, and tonight, knowing the door exists is enough. You'll walk through it tomorrow, or the day after, or whenever courage catches up to conviction. But for now, you sit in the kitchen, Galatians 6:1 still glowing in your mind like a candle in the dark, and you let yourself believe, just barely, just enough, that maybe God isn't done with you after all. You spend the next 3 days in a fog. Not the numb kind where you feel nothing, the opposite. You feel everything. Every memory, every interaction, every moment leading up to the fracture plays on loop in your mind like a film you can't turn off. You go through the motions at work, nodding in meetings, responding to emails with the kind of professionalism that hides the civil war happening inside you. But the moment you're alone, in your car, in your bedroom, standing in the shower with water running cold because you forgot you were in there, the spiral starts again. You try to justify it at first. That's the thing nobody tells you about hurting someone. Your brain will work overtime to protect you from the full weight of what you've done. It starts small. They misunderstood my tone. Then it escalates. The timing was just bad. I was under so much stress. If they knew what I was dealing with, they'd understand. You rehearse these explanations like a closing argument, building your case, finding evidence that exonerates you. You replay the context, what was happening that day, what they said first, how the conversation got heated. You build a fortress of reasons why it wasn't entirely your fault. But the fortress has cracks. And late at night, when your defenses are down and you're too tired to lie to yourself anymore, the truth seeps through. Your intent doesn't erase their harm. It doesn't matter how stressed you were. It doesn't matter what they said first. It doesn't even matter if they misunderstood your tone. What matters, the only thing that matters, is that your words landed like a blade and you were holding the knife. The impact is real. The wound is real. And you caused it. You're sitting in your car outside the grocery store when it finally breaks through. You weren't even thinking about it. You were just staring at the steering wheel, trying to decide if you had the energy to go inside, when suddenly the justifications collapse like a house of cards. All at once. No warning. Just, I was wrong. Not, I was wrong, but not, I was wrong, however, just, I was wrong. The words hang in the silence of your car, and you feel them in your stomach. Heavy, undeniable, true. You grip the steering wheel and exhale slowly, and it feels like the first honest breath you've taken in weeks. Ownership is a strange gift. It doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels like drowning. Because once you stop defending yourself, once you stop building cases and crafting narratives, you have to sit with the full weight of what you did. And it's heavy. You hurt someone. Not accidentally, not inevitably. You made choices. What to say, how to say it, when to stop and when to keep going. And those choices left marks. You can't undo them. You can't rewind the conversation and choose differently. You can only sit here in the grocery store parking lot, hands shaking on the steering wheel, and admit that you were the problem. The spiral tightens, but it's not destructive anymore. It's clarifying. You're not spiraling into self-hatred. That's just shame dressed up as conviction, and shame keeps you stuck. No, this is different. This is the kind of spiral that digs down to the root, that asks the hard questions not to punish but to understand. Why did I say that? What was I protecting? What was I afraid of? You sit with the questions. You don't rush to answer them. You just sit. And slowly, patterns begin to emerge. You start to see the fracture lines in your own soul. The places where you've been cracked for years. The wounds you never let heal properly. The defense mechanisms you built so long ago you forgot they were there. Maybe it's pride. Not the obvious kind, but the subtle kind that disguises itself as confidence. The kind that makes you speak before you listen. That assumes your perspective is complete. That doesn't pause long enough to consider you might be wrong. You think back to other conversations, other conflicts, and you see it now. The pattern of you talking over people, interrupting, needing to be right more than you needed to be kind. Or maybe it's hurry. The relentless pace of modern life that makes everything feel urgent, that turns people into tasks to be managed rather than souls to be loved. You were efficient. You cut corners. You prioritize productivity over presence. And somewhere in all that hurry, you forgot that relationships require time. Slow, unhurried, inefficient time. The kind of time that listens without planning your response. The kind of time that sits with someone's pain instead of rushing to fix it. You didn't have that kind of time. So you moved fast, spoke fast, decided fast. And in your speed, you trampled something precious. Or maybe it's old wounds that never healed. You think about your childhood, your family, the ways you learned to survive. Maybe you learned that honesty without love was the same thing as strength. Maybe you learned that just being real was more important than being gentle. Maybe you watched the adults in your life wield truth like a weapon, and you inherited the blueprint without questioning it. So when you spoke, you were honest, brutally, devastatingly honest, but you forgot the other half. You forgot love. You forgot tenderness. You forgot that truth without grace is just cruelty with better PR. You're not making excuses. That's the crucial distinction. You're not saying, I hurt people because my parents hurt me, so it's not my fault. You're saying, I hurt people because I have unhealed wounds that I've been projecting outward, and now I see the pattern, and now I can choose differently. There's a massive difference between explanation and excuse. Explanation says, here's how I got here. Excuse says, here's why it's not my fault. You're done with excuses. You're excavating. You're doing the hard, unglamorous work of looking at your own brokenness without flinching. A thought drops into your mind like a stone into still water. What if the courtroom isn't the right metaphor? You've been operating like your failure is a legal matter, crime, judgment, sentencing, punishment. But what if it's not? What if it's medical? What if you're not a criminal waiting for a verdict, but a patient sitting in a clinic, and God is a surgeon, not a judge? In a courtroom, you're sentenced and dismissed. The gavel falls. You're guilty, done. But in a clinic, wounds are cleaned, stitched, monitored, healed over time. There's pain in the process. Nobody enjoys antiseptic on an open wound. But the pain is purposeful. It's not punitive, it's restorative. You roll this metaphor around in your mind, and something shifts. Punishment isolates and ends. It says, you messed up, so you're out. But restoration invites you back in, slowly, with safeguards, with accountability, but it invites you back. It says, you belong here. You're part of the body. But we have to rebuild. We have to set some bones. We have to let some things heal before you can run again. And suddenly, the path forward doesn't look like exile. It looks like rehab. Hard, painful, slow, but not hopeless. Never hopeless. You think about the difference between shame and conviction, and you realize you've been confusing them for weeks. Shame says, you are bad. It's an identity statement. It's totalizing. It's the voice that says, you're worthless. You're irredeemable. You're the kind of person who hurts people, and that's all you'll ever be. Shame wants you to hide, to isolate, to give up. Shame is the enemy of healing because it convinces you that healing isn't possible. But conviction says, you did harm, and you can repair it. It's an action statement. It's specific. It's the voice that says, you made a choice that hurt someone. That's not who you are. That's what you did. And you can do differently. Conviction moves you toward repentance. Shame just buries you alive. You sit with this distinction until it settles into your bones. You've been drowning in shame, calling it conviction, wondering why you felt paralyzed instead of mobilized. But shame is paralysis. Conviction is a roadmap. Shame says, stay in the pit. Conviction says, climb out, and here's the first handhold. You're done with shame. You're choosing conviction, which means you're choosing movement, which means it's time to stop thinking and start doing. You pull out your phone, open the Notes app, stare at the blinking cursor for a long moment. Then you start typing. Not the apology yet. You're not ready for that. But something else. A list. A brutally honest, no-spin list of the harm you caused. Specific, concrete, undeniable. You write, I said, exact words. That was hurtful because it dismissed their pain and prioritized my comfort. I broke trust when I specific action. They deserved honesty and I gave them evasion. I made them feel small, less than, unimportant, and I did it in front of other people, which compounded the wound. You don't soften it, you don't add context, you just name it, and with each line the fog lifts a little more. Clarity is painful, but it's also clean. It's the antiseptic in the wound. It stings, but it's necessary. Then you write another list. This one's harder. It's titled, What I Need to Make Right. Not vague promises, not I'll do better. Specific, measurable, time-bound actions. Apologize in person if they're willing. If not, by text or letter, their choice, not mine. Replace/repair, specific thing that was damaged, if applicable. Remove myself from specific situation where I might repeat the harm until I've done the internal work. Meet with name of mature believer weekly for the next 3 months. Give them permission to ask hard questions. Read specific book on communication/conflict/humility and implement one practice from it each week. You stare at the list. It feels simultaneously too much and not enough. Too much because the thought of actually doing all this terrifies you. Not enough because no list can undo what you did. But it's something. It's the beginning of a roadmap. And roads, you remind yourself, are walked one step at a time. Now comes the hardest part. You open a new note. Title it, The Apology. Your heart rate spikes immediately. Your palms sweat. You can feel the resistance in your body. Every cell screaming, don't do this. Don't make yourself that vulnerable. What if they weaponize it? What if they don't care? But you type anyway. Slowly, carefully. Stripping out every excuse, every softening phrase, every attempt to make yourself look better. I need to say this without any buts or ifs or explanations. I said exact words. That was wrong. It was hurtful. It was careless. And it doesn't matter what I intended. What matters is the impact, and the impact was harm. You deserve to be heard, valued, and honored. I didn't do that. I prioritized being right over being kind. I spoke without thinking. I hurt you, and I take full responsibility for that. I can't undo what I said, but I can own it, and I can commit to doing differently. Here's what I want to do to make this right. Specific action from your list. I'm not asking you to forgive me on any timeline. I'm not asking you to make this easy for me. I'm just asking for the chance to prove over time that I'm serious about changing. I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve that, and I'm committed to becoming someone who doesn't do that again. You read it back. Your hands are shaking. It's raw, vulnerable, completely defenseless. Every instinct in your body wants to add a paragraph of context, a sentence that explains your state of mind, something, anything, that makes you look less culpable. But you don't. You save it as a draft and close your phone. The fear is immediate and overwhelming. What if they read it and never reply? What if they reply with more anger? What if they share it with other people and mock you for it? What if this just reopens the wound and makes everything worse? The questions pile up like sandbags, building a wall between you and the send button. You can feel your resolve weakening. You can feel the old patterns trying to reassert themselves. Maybe I should wait. Maybe I should pray about it more. Maybe I should run it by someone first. But you know what you're doing. You're stalling. You're hiding behind wisdom language, but really, you're just scared. And then, in the silence of your car, that whisper comes again. Gentle, patient, unhurried. Courage is gentle when it is mine. Press send when you're ready. I will meet you in the sending. You sit with that for a long time. I will meet you in the sending. Not, I'll guarantee a good outcome. Not, I'll make sure they forgive you. Just, I'll be with you. And somehow, that's enough. You don't need a guaranteed result. You just need to know you're not doing this alone. But you're still not ready to send it. Not yet. So you do something else. You open your contacts and scroll to a name. Marcus. He's older, grayer. Someone who's walked this road before. Someone who stumbled hard in his 30s, lost almost everything, and spent years rebuilding trust brick by brick. You've heard him tell pieces of his story in small group. Always with this quiet humility that doesn't perform but doesn't hide either. You trust him. More importantly, you trust that he won't shame you. You type, "Hey Marcus, I need someone to walk with me through some hard stuff. I messed up badly and I'm trying to make it right, but I need accountability. Can we meet this week?" You hit send before you can overthink it. Then you sit back, exhale, and feel something you haven't felt in weeks. Momentum. Small, fragile, but real. You're not hiding anymore. You're not performing. You're not pretending. You're just moving. One step, one honest word, one terrifying ask for help. Your phone buzzes. Marcus. Absolutely. Coffee tomorrow morning? 7 a.m.? You reply, I'll be there. And for the first time since this whole thing started, you feel something almost like hope. Not the kind that guarantees a happy ending, but the kind that says, maybe I'm not beyond repair. Maybe restoration is actually possible. Maybe God meant what he said in Galatians 6. You think of the verse again, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness. You're not the restorer in this story yet. You're the one being restored. But maybe, just maybe, if you let this process do its work, if you stop resisting and start surrendering, you'll be okay. Not perfect, not unscarred, but okay. Whole in a different way. Humble in a way that actually helps people instead of hurting them. You close your eyes, rest your head against the seat, and whisper a prayer that sounds nothing like the polished prayers you used to pray. God, I can't fix this alone. I don't even know if I can fix it at all, but I'm done hiding. I'm done pretending. I'm ready to walk whatever road you've got, even if it's long and hard and humiliating. Just walk with me, please. I need you. No lightning bolt, no audible voice, just peace. Small, quiet, settling over you like a blanket. You sit in it for a while. Then you start your car, drive home, and for the first time in 3 weeks, you sleep through the night. Not because everything's resolved, but because you've chosen honesty over image, reality over performance. And somehow, that choice, that simple, terrifying choice to stop hiding, has cracked the door open just wide enough for light to get in. Retry. You meet Marcus at the coffee shop on Tuesday morning. It's one of those places with exposed brick and mismatched furniture, the kind where nobody looks twice if you're crying into your latte. You arrive 10 minutes early, order black coffee you don't drink, and sit in the corner booth staring at the door. Your stomach is in knots. You've rehearsed what you're going to say, but every version sounds either too casual or too dramatic. There's no good way to start a conversation with, "I destroyed a friendship, and I don't know how to fix it." Marcus walks in at exactly 7. He's wearing the same flannel shirt he always wears, greying beard neatly trimmed, and he's got this presence that's hard to describe. Not intimidating, but solid. Grounded. Like he's been through fire and came out the other side without losing his softness. He spots you, nods, orders his coffee, and slides into the booth across from you. Doesn't say anything at first. Just looks at you with these steady eyes that somehow communicate, "I'm here." Take your time. You try to start 3 times. Open your mouth, close it, sip your coffee. Finally, you just blurt it out. "I hurt someone. Badly. And I don't know how to make it right." Your voice cracks on the last word, and you hate how fragile you sound, but Marcus doesn't flinch. He just nods slowly, like you've said the most reasonable thing in the world. "Tell me what happened," he says. Not curious, not judgmental, just present. So you do. You tell him everything. The conversation, the words you said, the silence that followed, the 3 weeks of avoidance and shame and justification, and finally, reluctantly, ownership. You show him the apology you wrote, the restitution plan, the list of patterns you've been excavating. You lay it all out like evidence on a table, and when you're done, you feel emptied out, exposed, waiting for the verdict. Marcus is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, "You know what I hear in all of that?" You shake your head. "I hear someone who's done the hardest part. You've stopped lying to yourself. Most people never get there. They stay in the justification phase forever. But you," he points at your phone where the apology sits in drafts. "You've named the harm. You've owned it. That's not nothing. That's huge." Relief floods through you, but it's complicated, because part of you wanted him to tell you it wasn't that bad, that you're being too hard on yourself, that everything's going to be fine. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he says, "Now comes the part that's going to test whether you're serious." You lean forward. He continues, "You're going to have to actually face them. Not over text, in person. And you're going to have to let their pain speak without defending yourself. Can you do that?" The question sits heavy in the space between you. Can you? You think about seeing them face to face, about sitting across from them the way you're sitting across from Marcus right now, about listening to them tell you how much you hurt them without interrupting, without explaining, without making it about you. The thought terrifies you, but you nod anyway. "I have to try." Marcus smiles, not a big smile, just a slight upturn at the corners of his mouth. "Good. Because here's what I've learned. Restoration doesn't happen in the abstract. It happens in the specific, in the showing up, in the sitting with someone else's anger and grief and letting it be theirs, not taking it on as something you have to fix right this second. You caused harm. They have a right to their response. Your job isn't to control that response. Your job is to honor it. You write that down on a napkin. Honor their response. It's such a simple phrase, but it reframes everything. You've been so focused on managing outcomes, on making sure this ends with forgiveness and reconciliation, that you forgot. They don't owe you anything. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not even a conversation. If they give you the chance to make amends, that's a gift, not a right. So what do I do, you ask? Right now, today. What's the next step? Marcus thinks for a moment, then says, you text them. You don't send the apology yet. That needs to happen face to face if they're willing. You just ask, would you be willing to meet me for coffee? I owe you an apology, and I'd like to do it in person if you're open to that. If not, I understand, and I can send it in writing. Short, simple, their choice. Your heart hammers. What if they say no? Marcus shrugs. Then you send it in writing and you respect their boundary. You don't push, you don't guilt them. You give them space and you work on yourself and you pray that maybe, down the road, there's an opening, but you don't wait for their permission to do your own work. You start changing regardless of whether they ever see it. You sit with that. It makes sense, but it also makes your stomach hurt. Because there's a part of you that wants guaranteed outcomes, that wants to know for sure that if you do A, B, and C, you'll get D. But restoration doesn't work like that. It's not a formula, it's a posture. A commitment to doing the right thing, whether or not you get the result you want. You pull out your phone, open the message thread. Your thumb hovers over the keyboard. Marcus watches you but doesn't say anything. Finally, you type, "Hey, I know it's been a few weeks. I've been doing some hard thinking and I owe you an apology, a real one. Would you be willing to meet for coffee so I can say it in person? If not, I completely understand and I can send it in writing. Either way, I just want you to know I see what I did and I'm sorry." You read it 3 times. Then you close your eyes and hit send before you can stop yourself. The whoosh sound feels like jumping off a cliff. You set the phone face down on the table and look at Marcus. Now what? He grins. Now you wait. And you breathe. And you remember that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the thing anyway. You and Marcus talk for another hour. He tells you some of his own story, the betrayal, the lies, the years it took to rebuild trust with his wife and his church. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't give you a neat 3-step plan. He just tells you the truth. It's slow, it's messy, and it's worth it. The person you become through this process, he says, is someone who can actually help other people. Because you'll know what it costs to be restored. And that knowledge, that lived experience, it makes you gentle. Makes you the kind of person God can trust with other people's pain. You think about Galatians 6:1 again. Ye which are spiritual, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness. Spiritual doesn't mean perfect, it means restored. It means you've been in the pit and God pulled you out, so now you know the way. You're not there yet. You're still in the middle of your own restoration, but you can see the outline of who you might become on the other side of this. And for the first time, that future person doesn't look weak. They look strong. Strong in a way that doesn't need to dominate or defend. Strong in a way that can hold space for other people's pain without collapsing. Your phone buzzes. You both look at it. You pick it up with shaking hands. It's them. Your breath catches. You read it once, twice. Then you exhale slowly. They said yes. Not enthusiastically. Just, okay. Thursday at 3. Same place we used to meet. But it's a yes. It's a door cracked open. It's a chance. Marcus reaches across the table and squeezes your shoulder. You've got this. Remember, you're not going there to perform. You're going there to tell the truth. Name the harm. Own it. Ask how you can help carry what you caused. And then, this is crucial, you shut up and listen. Let them talk as long as they need to. Don't interrupt. Don't defend. Just receive it. You nod, feeling the weight of what's ahead. And I'll be praying, he adds. Text me after. Let me know how it goes. You leave the coffee shop, feeling like you're walking on a tightrope, terrified but moving. That's the strange alchemy of courage. It doesn't remove fear, it just gives you something stronger to hold on to. You've got 2 days before the meeting, 2 days to prepare, not to rehearse a performance, but to get your heart right. To remember that this isn't about you looking good, it's about them being heard. You spend those 2 days in prayer, Not the eloquent kind, just raw, honest conversations with God in your car, in your bedroom, in the shower. Help me listen. Help me not defend. Help me honor their pain. Help me be meek. That word keeps coming back. Meek. You look it up in 3 different Bible dictionaries trying to understand what it really means. Not weakness, not passivity, but power under control. Strength submitted to a higher purpose. A war horse that responds to the gentlest tug of the reins. Thursday comes. You arrive at the coffee shop 15 minutes early again. Order the same black coffee you won't drink. Sit in the same corner booth. Your heart is pounding so hard you can feel it in your throat. You pray under your breath, God, I need you. I can't do this alone. Give me your meekness. Let me honor them well. You check your phone. 2:58. Any minute now. The door opens. They walk in. Your stomach drops. They look guarded. Arms crossed slightly, shoulders tight, eyes scanning the room before landing on you. They don't smile. They just walk over and sit down across from you without ordering anything. The silence is heavy. You can feel the distance between you like a physical thing, not the 3 feet across the table, but the miles of hurt that have accumulated over these weeks. You open your mouth to start your rehearsed apology, but something stops you. Maybe it's the look on their face. Maybe it's the way their jaw is clenched. Maybe it's just the spirit whispering, not yet. So instead you say, thank you for being willing to sit with me. I know that wasn't easy. They nod once, stiff. Then you say the hardest thing. Before I say anything else, I just want you to know, I'm not here to defend myself or explain myself. I'm here to listen, and if you want to tell me how this affected you, I'm ready to hear it. They look surprised, like they came ready for a fight and you just refused to pick up your sword. For a long moment, they don't say anything. Then, quietly, do you even understand what you did? Their voice shakes slightly, and you can hear years of hurt underneath the question. Not just this incident, but all the times before when someone hurt them and didn't care enough to acknowledge it. You take a breath. Choose your words carefully. I said, exact words. That was cruel. It dismissed your pain and made you feel small. And I did it in a way that left you with nowhere to go. You couldn't respond without looking defensive, so you just absorbed it. And that wasn't fair. That wasn't kind. That wasn't love. You pause. I don't know if that's everything, but that's what I see now. And if there's more, I want to hear it. They stare at you. And then, like a dam breaking, they start talking. They tell you how they replayed that conversation for weeks, how they questioned themselves. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I misheard. How they tried to give you the benefit of the doubt but couldn't get past the look on your face when you said it, like you meant to wound. How they felt humiliated because it happened in front of other people. How they didn't feel safe in spaces you both occupied anymore. How they started avoiding church, avoiding friends, avoiding everything because they didn't want to risk running into you. You listen. You don't interrupt. You don't say, that's not what I meant, or you're misremembering, or any of the defensive things rising in your throat. You just listen. And you let their pain land. It's excruciating. Because hearing someone articulate, in detail, how much you hurt them, there's no hiding from that. No softening it. No making it about anything other than the harm you caused. When they finally pause, you can see tears in their eyes. Your own eyes are wet too. You say softly, I'm so sorry. You deserved so much better than that. You deserved to be heard and valued and honored, and I did the opposite. I was careless. I was prideful. I prioritized being right over being kind, and you paid the price for that. You pause, then ask the question Marcus told you to ask, how can I help carry what I caused? They look confused. What do you mean? You lean forward slightly. I mean, what do you need from me? Space, an apology to the people who were there. Time. I can't undo what happened, but I can try to help carry the weight of it. So tell me, what would help? They're quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, I need you to tell Sarah what really happened. Because right now she thinks I'm overreacting, And that's its own kind of hurt. I need you to own it with her the way you're owning it with me. You nod immediately. I'll do that. This week, I'll call her. They continue. And I need time. I can't just flip a switch and trust you again. That's going to take a while. I understand, you say. I don't expect closure today. I don't expect forgiveness on any timeline. I just wanted you to know that I see what I did, and I'm committed to doing differently. And if that means you need a year of space, or you need me to step back from certain gatherings, or you need anything else, I'll honor that. They study your face like they're trying to determine if you're serious. Then they say something that cracks you open. I didn't think you'd actually show up. I thought you'd send some polished apology text and then move on. You shake your head. No. You deserved better than that too. The conversation continues for another 30 minutes. It's not neat. It doesn't wrap up with a bow. But something shifts. The temperature in the room changes. Not to warm exactly, but to human, real, like you're both finally telling the truth after weeks of performance and avoidance. When you stand to leave, they don't hug you, but they don't leave angry either. They just say, "Thank you for listening." And you say, "Thank you for giving me the chance." And then you walk out into the parking lot feeling simultaneously gutted and lighter. Gutted because hearing their pain was excruciating. Lighter because you're not hiding anymore. You sit in your car and text Marcus. It happened, it was hard, but I think we're going to be okay, not today, but eventually. He responds immediately. Proud of you. That took real courage. Now the work begins. You stare at that last sentence. Now the work begins. Because the apology was just the starting line. The real restoration, the slow, unsexy work of rebuilding trust through consistent action, that's what comes next. You drive home in silence. No music. No podcast. Just quiet. And in that quiet, you hear it again. That whisper that's been following you through this whole process. Meekness is strength submitted. Let their grief finish its sentence. You let their grief finish its sentence. You didn't rush it, didn't redirect it, didn't defend against it. You just held space for it. And somehow, in the holding, something sacred happened. Not healing yet, but honesty. And honesty, you're learning, is the soil where healing grows. That night you write in your journal, a practice you've started since all this began. You write, I am not the villain in this story, but I'm not the hero either. I'm just a person who hurt another person and is trying to make it right. And that's enough. That's the whole job. You close the journal, turn off the light, and pray one more time. Thank you for walking with me through this. Thank you for not giving up on me. Help me keep walking. Even when it's hard. Even when I don't see progress. Just help me keep walking. And then you sleep. Deep. Dreamless. The sleep of someone whose conscience is, for the first time in weeks, starting to clear. The days after that conversation feel different. Not easier, different. You wake up Friday morning and the first thing you think about isn't the shame spiral or the unsent apology anymore. It's the commitment you made. I'll call Sarah this week. Your stomach clenches at the thought, but it's not the paralyzed dread you've been carrying. It's purpose-driven discomfort. The kind that means you're doing something that matters. You don't put it off. That's the thing about momentum. Once you start moving, staying still becomes harder than continuing forward. You pick up your phone Saturday afternoon, find Sarah's contact, and stare at it for a full minute. Your thumb hovers. You can hear your heartbeat in your ears. Then you remember their face across the coffee shop table, the way they said, I need you to tell Sarah what really happened, and you press call before you can talk yourself out of it. It rings 3 times. Sarah answers with her usual brightness. Hey, what's up? And just like that, you're in it. No more runway, no more rehearsal, just the moment. You take a breath and say, Hey Sarah, I need to talk to you about something and it's not going to be easy to hear. Do you have a few minutes? The brightness dims. Oh, yeah. What's going on? You can hear her shifting, getting settled, preparing herself. You start the same way you started with them. Honest, specific, no spin. I hurt their name a few weeks ago. I said something cruel, and I said it in front of you and some others, and I need to own that with you too. Because right now, I think there's some confusion about what happened, and I want to make sure you know the truth. Silence on the other end. Then, okay. You continue. What I said was exact words. And the way I said it was dismissive. It was meant to shut down the conversation, and it made them feel small. I was wrong. Completely. And I'm calling because they asked me to, but also because you deserve to know. I don't want there to be any ambiguity about who was at fault here. It was me. More silence. You can almost hear Sarah recalibrating, reframing the past few weeks through this new lens. Finally, she says, I didn't realize it was that serious. They seemed upset, but I don't know what I thought. I guess I assumed there was more to the story. You nod, even though she can't see you. There's not. I hurt them. And I'm working to make it right. But part of that is making sure people know what actually happened. So I'm telling you now, I messed up, badly, and if they seemed upset, they had every right to be. Sarah's voice softens. Thank you for telling me. That actually means a lot. Most people wouldn't do that. You exhale slowly. I'm trying to do things differently. Trying to be someone who owns their mistakes instead of hiding from them. It's not fun, but it's necessary. She pauses, then asks, Are you guys okay now? You consider the question carefully. We're honest now. We're not hiding. Whether we're okay, that's going to take time. But we're on the road. When you hang up, you feel wrung out but clean. Like you've been carrying a weight you didn't even realize was there, and now it's gone. You text them, called Sarah, told her everything. She understands now. 3 dots appear immediately. Then, thank you. That helps. Just 3 words. But they land like grace. You realize something sitting there on your couch, staring at those 3 words. Restoration isn't one big moment. It's 1,000 small ones. It's every time you choose honesty over image. Every time you honor a boundary instead of pushing. Every time you do what you said you'd do when you said you'd do it. Trust isn't rebuilt with grand gestures. It's rebuilt with consistent, unglamorous faithfulness. The kind nobody sees. The kind that doesn't make good stories. The kind that just shows up. Sunday comes and you're back in church. Same building, different posture. You used to sit near the back, slouched, trying to be invisible. Today you sit in your normal spot, not because you're confident, but because hiding isn't the answer anymore. You see Sarah across the sanctuary. She catches your eye and nods. Not cold, not warm, just acknowledgement. That's enough. You see them too, a few rows ahead. They don't turn around, but you notice their shoulders aren't quite as tense as they were last week. The sermon is on James, chapter 1, verse 19. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. You've heard this verse 100 times, but today it lands different. Swift to hear. You think about Thursday afternoon, about sitting across from them and choosing to listen instead of defend, about letting their grief finish its sentence. That was swift to hear, slow to speak. You think about all the times you weren't, all the times you interrupted, assumed, steamrolled, all the times your mouth moved faster than your compassion. The pastor keeps going, but you're stuck on that verse. You pull out your phone and open your Bible app, read the verses around it for context. Verse 20, For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. Your anger, your defensiveness, your need to be right, none of that produces the righteousness God wants. It just produces wreckage. Verse 21, Wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. There's that word again. Meekness. It follows you like a refrain through this whole season. You think about what it means, really means. Not doormat Christianity, not letting people walk all over you, but power under control, strength that doesn't need to prove itself, a posture that can absorb pain without retaliating, that can admit wrong without collapsing, that can stand firm in truth while remaining tender in delivery. After the service, you don't rush out. You linger, not to talk to anyone, just to sit in the presence of God without agenda. The sanctuary empties slowly, families collecting their kids, friends making lunch plans, the steady hum of community. You stay in your seat, hands open in your lap, and you pray without words. Just presence, just here I am, still broken, still learning, still yours. That week, you meet with Marcus again, Tuesday morning, same coffee shop, same corner booth. He asks how the conversation with them went, and you tell him everything. The listening, the tears, the commitment to call Sarah, the slow shift from hostility to honesty. He nods through all of it, and when you're done, he says, "You're learning something most people never learn. Restoration is a posture, not a project. You can't control outcomes. You can only control your faithfulness. But how do I know if it's working?" you ask. How do I know if I'm actually changing or just performing change? Marcus leans back, considers the question. You measure it in the moments when nobody's watching. When you're alone and someone cuts you off in traffic, what's your first reaction? When someone criticizes you at work, do you defend or do you listen? When you're tired and stressed and someone needs something from you, do you snap or do you pause? That's where you'll see it. Not in the big public moments, but in the small private ones. You think about that. The small private moments, the ordinary tests. You realize you have been changing, almost without noticing. 3 days ago, someone at work criticized your presentation in front of the team. You would have gotten defensive, would have listed all the reasons their criticism was invalid. But you didn't. You just said, "Thank you for the feedback. Let me think about that and get back to you." And later, alone, you actually considered whether they had a point. Turned out they did. You adjusted. Sent them a follow-up email acknowledging it. They seemed shocked, like they'd been bracing for a fight that never came. "I think I'm seeing it," you tell Marcus. Little things. I'm slower to react, more willing to be wrong, less attached to my own perspective. He smiles. That's the fruit. That's evidence of the Spirit doing surgery on your character. Don't despise the small changes. They compound. Give it time. You ask him about his own journey, how long it took before people trusted him again. He's quiet for a moment, then says, "Some people never did. I had to make peace with that. I had friends who couldn't get past what I did, and I had to respect their boundary. But the ones who stayed, the ones who walked with me through the restoration, those relationships are deeper now than they were before, because they're built on truth instead of image, on reality instead of performance." That lands heavy. Some people never did. You've been operating with this unspoken assumption that if you do everything right, everyone will come back. But that's not guaranteed. Some people will choose distance, and that's their right. Your job isn't to win everyone back. Your job is to become trustworthy, whether anyone ever trusts you again. Thursday night, you're reading Galatians again. You've been camping in chapter 6 for weeks now, but tonight you keep reading into the surrounding verses. Verse 3 catches you. "For if a man think himself to be something, when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself." You sit with that. Think himself to be something. That was you. Thinking you were above reproach, above the kind of careless cruelty you witnessed in others. Deceiving yourself into believing your good intentions immunized you from causing harm. Verse 4. "But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another." Prove your own work. Not compare your journey to someone else's. Not measure your progress against their timeline. Just do your work. Be faithful in your lane. The rejoicing comes not from how you stack up against others, but from the integrity of your own process. Verse 5. "For every man shall bear his own burden." You've been bearing your burden, not deflecting it, not minimizing it, not asking someone else to carry what's yours to carry. There's something clarifying about that, something that makes you stand taller, even as you kneel lower. You flip back to verse 2, "Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." Wait. Verse 2 says, "Bear one another's burdens." Verse 5 says, "Every man bears his own burden." That seems contradictory until you sit with it longer, until the distinction becomes clear. Verse 5 is about taking responsibility, Don't expect someone else to fix what you broke. But verse 2 is about community. When someone's struggling under a weight too heavy for one person, you step in. You help carry it. You think about them, about how you asked, how can I help carry what I caused? That was verse 2 in action. You caused the burden, but you offered to help carry it. Not to take it away, you can't do that, but to walk with them through it. To make the load a little lighter through practical action and consistent presence. The verses start weaving together in your mind like a tapestry. Restore with meekness, verse 1. Bear one another's burdens, verse 2. Don't think too highly of yourself, version 3. Prove your own work, version 4. Bear your own burden, version 5. It's a whole ecosystem of humble community. A way of being together that doesn't deny individual responsibility, but also doesn't leave people isolated in their struggles. You grab your journal and start writing, trying to capture what you're seeing. Restoration requires both self-honesty and community support. I have to own my part. Fully, no asterisks. But I also need people like Marcus who can walk with me, who can ask hard questions and offer perspective. I can't outsource my growth, but I also can't do it alone. It's both and, not either or. That weekend, you notice something. You're sleeping through the night now, consistently. No more 2 a.m. anxiety spirals. No more replaying the conversation on loop. You still feel the weight of what you did. That hasn't gone away, but it's not crushing anymore. It's just there. Part of your story now. Part of what's forming you into someone more careful with words, more quick to listen, more slow to speak. You run into them at the grocery store on Saturday. Total accident. You're in the cereal aisle. They round the corner with their cart, and suddenly you're 3 feet apart. For a split second, panic, but then they give you a small smile. Guarded, but real. Hey, they say. You return it. Hey, how are you? They shrug. Getting there. You nod. Same. Getting there. It's a 30-second interaction, but it feels monumental. Because 6 weeks ago, they wouldn't have smiled. They would have turned their cart around and gone the other direction. The fact that they didn't. The fact that they acknowledged you, spoke to you, smiled even slightly. That's progress. Not reconciliation yet, not full restoration, but progress. And progress, you're learning to accept, is enough for today. That night you're sitting on your back porch, watching the sun go down, and you feel gratitude for the first time since this all started. Not gratitude that it happened. You'd still undo it if you could. But gratitude that God didn't let you get away with it. Gratitude that He loved you enough to drag you into the light. Gratitude that correction came, because correction is care. If He'd let you hide, the pattern would have repeated. The wound would have festered. You'd have hurt more people in more ways, and eventually you'd have become someone you didn't recognize. But He didn't let you hide. He exposed the fracture so He could set it. And now, months into this process, you can feel the bones starting to knit back together. Stronger in the broken place. That's what they say about bones, right? They heal stronger where they break. You think maybe that's true about souls too. Maybe the places where you've been fractured and restored become the strongest parts of you. The parts most useful to God. The parts most tender toward others. You whisper into the dusk. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for restoration. Thank you for meekness. Thank you for showing me that I'm not disqualified. I'm being refined. The sky burns orange and pink, and you sit there until the color fades to purple, then to dark. And in that darkness, you feel the presence of God. Not dramatic, not loud, but steady. Steady as a heartbeat. And you hear it one more time, that whisper that's been your companion through this whole journey. I restore people, not just reputations. Keep walking softly. You will. You'll keep walking softly. Not because you're weak, but because you're learning that meekness, true meekness, is the strongest posture there is. It's the posture that can apologize without collapsing, that can listen without defending, that can change without announcing it, that can carry a burden without complaining about the weight. It's the posture of Christ, and you're learning to wear it, slowly, imperfectly, but sincerely. Monday comes, and you're back at coffee with Marcus. He asks about your week, and you tell him about the grocery store encounter. He grins. That's huge. You know why? You shake your head. Because consistency is the apology that keeps speaking. You didn't force the interaction. You didn't demand progress. You just showed up in your life with a different posture, and they noticed. That's how trust rebuilds. Not through words, but through the steady accumulation of small, faithful actions. You write that in your phone notes. Consistency is the apology that keeps speaking. It becomes your new mantra, replacing the anxious questions that used to dominate your thoughts. You're not asking, will they forgive me, anymore. You're asking, am I being faithful today? The shift is subtle, but seismic, because the first question puts control in someone else's hands. The second question puts responsibility in yours, and responsibility, you're learning, is freedom. Not the burden you thought it would be, but freedom. Because when you're responsible for your own growth, your own consistency, your own faithfulness, you're not at the mercy of other people's responses anymore. You're just walking the road God's given you, one step at a time, trusting Him with the outcomes. 3 months pass. Not quickly. More like the way seasons change, so gradual you don't notice until you look up one day and realize everything's different. The leaves have turned. The air has that October crispness that makes you want to wear flannel and drink coffee on the porch. And somewhere in those 90 days, without fanfare or announcement, something fundamental shifted inside you. You wake up one Tuesday morning and realize the first thing on your mind isn't the failure anymore. It's not the shame, not the fractured relationship, not the constant mental replay of what you should have said differently. The first thing you think about is the meeting you have at 10, the project you're excited about, the text from a friend asking if you want to grab lunch, normal things, life things. And it hits you. I'm not drowning anymore. You sit on the edge of your bed for a moment, taking inventory. The heaviness that's been sitting on your chest for months. It's not gone completely, but it's lighter. So much lighter, you almost didn't notice it lifting. Like someone's been removing weights 1 ounce at a time while you were sleeping, and now you can finally breathe full and deep without that crushing pressure. It's not that everything's resolved. You and them are still rebuilding. Still in that careful space where you're friendly but not quite friends again, where there's warmth but also appropriate distance. You still see them at church, still exchange texts occasionally, still navigate the slow work of trust being rebuilt brick by brick. But somewhere along the way, you stopped needing a specific outcome to feel okay. You stopped measuring your worth by whether they forgave you. You just started living again. And that, you realize, is its own kind of peace. Not the peace of resolution, but the peace of a clean conscience. The peace that comes from knowing you've done everything you can do, said everything you need to say, and the rest is between them and God. You can't control their timeline. You can't force healing. You can only be faithful, and you have been. Week after week, small choice after small choice, you've been faithful. You think about Galatians 6 again, that chapter that's become your companion through all of this. You've read it so many times you can recite chunks of it from memory now. But this morning, verse 9 catches you in a new way. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. Due season. Not your season, not the timeline you wanted, but God's season. And the promise isn't that everything will go back to how it was. The promise is that faithfulness produces fruit. If you don't faint, you haven't fainted. There were days you wanted to. Days when the slowness of restoration felt unbearable. When you wanted to just skip to the end. When you were tempted to give up and accept that some things just stay broken. But you didn't faint. You kept showing up, kept doing the next right thing, kept choosing honesty over image, meekness over defensiveness, faithfulness over results. And now, looking back over 3 months, you can see the fruit, small, quiet, real. You're different now. Not perfect. God knows you're still learning, still stumbling, still catching yourself before old patterns reassert themselves. But different in ways that matter. You notice it in the small moments Marcus told you to watch for. Someone cuts you off in traffic and instead of rage, you just breathe. Let it go. Think maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe they're having the worst day of their life. You give them the grace you wish you'd given yourself sooner. At work, your boss criticizes your report in a team meeting. It stings. Of course it stings. But you don't spiral. You don't get defensive. You don't spend the rest of the day crafting mental arguments about why she's wrong. You just say, "Thanks for the feedback. I'll revise and get it back to you by Friday." And then you do. No drama, no performance, just responsiveness. Your coworker pulls you aside later and says, "How do you stay so calm when she does that?" You shrug. "I'm learning that being right isn't as important as I thought it was." Your friend calls crying about her marriage falling apart, and instead of jumping in with advice, your old default, you just listen. For 40 minutes, you sit on your couch with the phone pressed to your ear, and you don't say much except, "I'm here and I'm listening," and that sounds really hard. When she finally pauses, you ask, "What do you need right now? Someone to problem solve with you, or just someone to sit in this with you?" She exhales shakily, "Just sit with me." So you do, and when you hang up, she texts, "Thank you for not trying to fix me. I just needed to not be alone." You stare at that text for a long time, feeling something settle in your chest. This is who you want to be. The pattern repeats in a dozen small ways over the next few weeks. You're slower to speak, quicker to listen, more willing to be wrong, less attached to your own perspective, more curious about other people's experiences. It's like someone turned down the volume on your ego just enough that you can hear other people clearly now. You're not performing humility, you're just humble, actually humble, the kind that doesn't announce itself. One Sunday after church, you're standing in the foyer with coffee in hand when someone you barely know approaches you. Younger guy, maybe mid-20s, looking nervous. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" You nod, step aside to a quieter corner. He looks at his shoes, then at you. I messed up. Said something really hurtful to my roommate and now he won't talk to me. Someone mentioned you went through something similar, and I don't know what to do." Your first instinct is to deflect, to say you're not qualified, to point him towards someone with more wisdom or experience. But then you remember Marcus sitting across from you in that coffee shop 3 months ago, offering his own scars as a roadmap, and you realize, this is it. This is what Galatians 6:1 looks like in real life. You which are spiritual, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness. You're not spiritual because you're perfect. You're spiritual because you've been restored, and now you get to participate in restoring someone else. You gesture toward the chairs in the corner. "Yeah, let's sit. Tell me what happened." For the next 20 minutes, you listen to his story. So similar to yours, it's eerie. The careless words, the justified anger at the beginning, the slow realization that he was wrong, the paralysis of not knowing how to make it right. When he finishes, he looks at you with these desperate eyes. Do you think it's too late? You shake your head slowly. It's not too late. But it's going to require something from you that'll feel impossible at first. Radical honesty. No defense, no justification. Just owning what you did and asking how you can make it right. You pull out your phone, open your notes app, and show him the framework Marcus gave you. Name the harm specifically. Take full responsibility. Offer concrete restitution. Honor their timeline, not yours. He screenshots it. "This really works?" he asks. You choose your words carefully. It works in the sense that it puts you in the right posture. It doesn't guarantee they'll forgive you. It doesn't guarantee the relationship goes back to what it was. But it puts you on the path of integrity. And that's all you can control. He nods slowly, processing. Then he asks, "How long did it take? For them to trust you again?" You smile slightly. Still happening. 3 months in, and we're still in process. Some days feel like progress. Some days feel like we're back at square one. But we're both still showing up. And that counts for something. Before he leaves, he asks one more question. Does it get easier? You think about that. Does it? The shame isn't as loud as it was. The fear isn't as paralyzing. But the work, the daily choice to be honest, to stay soft, to keep showing up, that's still work. I don't know if easier is the right word, you finally say, but it gets clearer. You start to see why it matters. You start to see who you're becoming through the process, and that makes it worth it. You watch him walk away, and you feel something you haven't felt in a long time, useful. Not in a performative way, not in a, look at me, I'm so wise way. Just useful. Like your pain had a purpose beyond punishment. Like your failure is being redeemed into something that can actually help someone else navigate their own restoration. That's when it hits you. This is what God was doing all along. You sit back down in your chair, letting that realization wash over you. God wasn't just correcting you, He was forming you. Every uncomfortable conversation, every moment of listening to pain you caused, every small choice to be faithful when no one was watching, it was all building something. Not building your reputation back, building your character into something that could hold the weight of other people's trust, building you into someone who doesn't need to dominate conversations, doesn't need to be right, doesn't need to protect an image, someone who can sit with pain, yours and other people's, without running. That evening you're reading through Galatians 6 again, but this time you keep going past your usual stopping point. Verse 7, Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. You used to read that as threat, like God saying, you messed up, now face the consequences. But tonight it reads different. Tonight it sounds like promise. Because yes, you sowed carelessness and reaped pain, but then you started sowing honesty, humility, consistency, and now, slowly, quietly, you're reaping peace, trust, usefulness. Verse 8, For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. Life everlasting. Not just heaven someday, but life that lasts, life that sustains, life that matters beyond the moment. That's what this slow work of restoration has given you. A life that matters. A life built on truth instead of image. On reality instead of performance. And that kind of life, it endures. Verse 9 again. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. Due season. You're in it now. Not the end. There's still healing ahead, still rebuilding to do. But you're in the season where the seeds you've been planting are starting to break through soil. Green shoots, evidence of life. You haven't fainted. You didn't give up when it was hard. And now you get to see why. You close your Bible and sit in the quiet of your living room, and you feel gratitude rising like a tide. Not gratitude that you failed. You'd still undo it if you could. Still spare them the pain if it were possible, but gratitude that God didn't waste your failure. Gratitude that He took your worst moment and is somehow impossibly using it to make you into your best self. Not perfect, but real. And real, you've learned, is better than perfect anyway. Your phone buzzes. It's them. Your heart does a little jump, still does, probably always will. The text says, Hey, I know it's random, but I was thinking about you today. Wanted to say I see the work you're doing. It doesn't go unnoticed. Proud of you. You read it 3 times, 4, 5. Then you just sit there with your phone in your lap, tears running down your face, whispering, thank you, over and over into the empty room. Because this is what restoration looks like. Not a big dramatic moment where everything's fixed and perfect. Just a random Tuesday text that says, I see you. You're not invisible. The work matters. That's the reaping. That's the fruit of faithfulness. And it's better than anything you could have manufactured or forced. You text back. That means more than you know. Thank you for not giving up on me. 3 dots appear. Then, we're still walking. That's what matters. You smile through tears. Yeah, still walking. That night you meet Marcus at the coffee shop one more time. Not because you're in crisis, but because Tuesday morning coffee with Marcus has become part of your life now, part of your architecture of accountability and growth. He can tell something's different the moment you sit down. You look lighter, he says. You nod. I feel lighter. Not because everything's resolved, but because... You search for the words. Because I'm not carrying shame anymore, just responsibility. And responsibility, turns out, is way lighter. Marcus grins that knowing grin. Welcome to the other side. Not the end, just the other side of the worst part. You lean forward. So what now? I mean, I know the work continues. But what does it look like from here? He thinks for a moment. From here, you become the person someone else needs 3 months from now. You keep doing your work, the small, faithful, unglamorous stuff, and you stay open, stay soft, stay meek. Because the moment you start thinking you've arrived, you'll stop growing. But if you can maintain this posture, this teachable, humble, listening posture, you'll be dangerous for the kingdom in the best way. Dangerous for the kingdom. You like that. Not dangerous in the aggressive, dominating sense. Dangerous in the way a surgeon is dangerous to cancer. Dangerous in the way truth spoken gently is dangerous to shame. Dangerous in the way meekness is dangerous to pride. That's who you want to be. You drive home that night with the windows down, cold October air whipping through the car, and you feel alive. Fully, completely alive. Not the artificial aliveness of adrenaline or achievement, but the deep-rooted aliveness of someone who's walked through fire and came out still breathing, still here, still learning, still loved. And somewhere in the wind and the dark and the quiet hum of the engine, you hear it one more time, that voice that's been your companion through every hard step of this journey. I restore people, not just reputations. Keep walking softly. You will, not because you have to, but because you've tasted what soft walking produces. Peace, integrity, usefulness, fruit that lasts. You'll keep walking softly through the rest of your life, and every person who stumbles across your path, you'll offer them the same gift Marcus offered you, a roadmap written in scars, a testimony that says you can come back from this, and a presence that doesn't fix but doesn't abandon. That's restoration. Not the event, but the life. Not the moment, but the posture. And you're finally, gratefully, beautifully living it. 6 months later, you're standing in your kitchen at 6 a.m. on an ordinary Wednesday, making coffee in the pre-dawn quiet. The house is still. The world outside is that particular shade of grey that comes just before sunrise. And you realize as you watch the coffee drip into the pot that you're not thinking about the failure at all. You're thinking about the day ahead, the presentation at work, the lunch with a friend, the small group meeting tonight where you're supposed to bring dessert. Normal things. Beautiful, mundane, normal things. The coffee finishes brewing and you pour a cup, add cream, watch it swirl. 6 months ago, you couldn't have imagined feeling this steady. This, okay. Not okay in the toxic positivity sense where you pretend hard things didn't happen. Okay in the deep down in your bones sense where you've integrated the pain into your story without letting it define your story. You failed. You repaired what could be repaired. You're still repairing. And somehow, impossibly, you're okay. You take your coffee to the back porch, your thinking spot, your praying spot, the place where you've done some of your hardest reckoning over these months. The sky is starting to lighten at the edges, purple bleeding into pink. You sit in the old chair that's probably due for replacement but you love anyway, and you just breathe. Notice the morning, the birds starting their songs. The way the air smells different in November than it did in August when all this started. Everything changes, everything grows, even you. Your phone buzzes. A text from that young guy you talked to 6 months ago in the church foyer. Jordan, that's his name. You've been meeting with him monthly since then, walking him through his own restoration process. The text says, "He forgave me. We talked for 3 hours last night, and he actually forgave me. I didn't think it would happen, but it did. Thank you for not letting me give up." You smile, type back. That's beautiful, man. Now comes the fun part, living into that forgiveness. Keep showing up. Keep being faithful. I'm proud of you. You sit back, looking at that exchange, and you feel it again. That sense of purpose that's emerged from the wreckage. Your failure wasn't wasted. It's being recycled into something useful. You're not a cautionary tale anymore. You're a testimony, not the kind that gets shared from stages with perfect lighting and dramatic music. The quiet kind. The kind that happens in coffee shops and church foyers and late-night phone calls when someone needs to know they're not beyond redemption. Last month, you started volunteering with the church's conflict resolution team. It wasn't something you sought out. Pastor Rachel approached you after service one Sunday, said she'd noticed how you'd handled your own situation, wondered if you'd be willing to help others navigate similar waters. Your first instinct was to decline. Who am I to help anyone? I'm still figuring this out myself. But then you remembered Galatians 6:1 again. Ye which are spiritual, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness. Spiritual doesn't mean perfect. It means restored. It means you've been in the pit and God pulled you out, so now you know the path. So you said yes. And now, once a month, you sit with people who've hurt others or been hurt, and you help facilitate conversations. Not as an expert. You're careful never to position yourself that way. Just as someone who's walked the road, someone who knows what meekness costs and what it produces. Last week you sat with a married couple who were barely speaking, helped them hear each other for the first time in months. At the end, the wife looked at you and said, "How did you know what questions to ask?" You smiled. "I had someone ask me those same questions when I needed them most. I'm just passing it forward." Passing it forward. That's become your North Star. Not hoarding the lessons you've learned, not treating your healing like a private possession, but offering it freely to anyone who needs it. Because that's what Marcus did for you. That's what Galatians 6:2 means. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. The law of Christ isn't complicated theology, it's just this: help carry what's heavy. You've learned how to do that now, not by fixing people, but by walking with them, you and them. You're in a different place now too. Not back to where you were before. Something new. Something honest in a way the old friendship never was. Because the old friendship was built on assumptions and the new one is being built on truth. You text regularly now, not every day but steady. You had coffee 2 weeks ago and laughed, actually laughed, about something silly, and it felt like breathing after holding your breath underwater. The wound has scarred. It's still tender if you press on it, but it's closed. It's healing. And some days, you can almost forget it was ever there. Almost, but not quite. And that's good, actually, because the scar is a teacher. It reminds you to go slow, to listen more than you speak, to ask before you assume, to honor people's pain instead of minimizing it. The scar makes you better at loving people, better at being human with them, better at creating space for their full humanity instead of just the parts that are convenient for you. Your friend Maya called last week, crying because she'd said something awful to her sister and didn't know how to fix it. You talked her through it, the same steps Marcus walked you through. Own it specifically, no defense, offer concrete repair, honor their timeline. She called you 2 days later. I did it. It was horrible and beautiful, and I think we're going to be okay. You know that feeling. That horrible, beautiful feeling of honesty after hiding, of light after darkness, of redemption after failure. At work, people have noticed you're different. Your boss pulled you aside last month and said, "I don't know what's changed, but you're easier to work with, more collaborative, less ego." You almost laughed. Less ego. That's one way to put it. The more accurate way is that your ego got shattered and you had to rebuild yourself from the ground up. And when you did, you chose not to reinstall the ego as a load-bearing wall. But you just smiled and said, "I'm learning that being right isn't as important as being in right relationship." She looked at you for a long moment, then said something that stayed with you. Whatever you're learning, keep learning it. It's making you better at your job and better to be around. You're not offended by the implication that you used to be difficult. You were. You know you were, but you're not anymore. Or at least you're less difficult, less defensive, less attached to your own perspective, more open to being wrong, more willing to adjust. The sun is fully up now, washing your backyard in that golden morning light that makes everything look holy. You finish your coffee and pull out your phone, open your Bible app, navigate to Galatians 6 again. You've read this chapter so many times it's practically written on your heart, but today you're drawn to the end. Verse 14. But God forbid that I should glory, save in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom the world is crucified unto me, and I unto the world. Glory only in the cross, not in your comeback, not in your restoration, not in how well you've handled this or how mature you've become, just in the cross, in the fact that Jesus makes a way when there is no way, that he restores what we destroy, that he takes our ashes and makes something beautiful. That's the only glory that matters. Verse 15. For in Christ Jesus neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but a new creature. A new creature. You feel that in your bones. You're not who you were 6 months ago. The old defenses are gone. The old need to be right has been excavated like a bad tooth. What's left is something new, something softer and stronger at the same time, something that can bend without breaking, something that can apologize without collapsing, something that can be wrong without unraveling. Verse 16. And as many as walk according to this rule, peace be on them, and mercy, and upon the Israel of God. Peace and mercy. That's what you've received. That's what you're learning to extend, not just to others, but to yourself. You're gentler with yourself now than you used to be. When you mess up, and you still do, because you're human and growth isn't linear, you don't spiral into shame. You just correct. Apologize if needed. Adjust, move forward. The voice in your head that used to be harsh and condemning has softened into something that sounds a lot like how Marcus talks to you. Firm but kind, honest but not cruel. You think about the person you're becoming and you realize, this is who you always wanted to be. Not perfect, not impressive, just real. Someone who tells the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Someone who admits when they're wrong. Someone who can sit with other people's pain without needing to fix it or flee from it. Someone whose presence makes people feel safer, not smaller. Someone who bears witness to the fact that restoration is possible, that grace is real, that God doesn't give up on people. Last Sunday you gave your testimony in small group. Not the whole story, some things are too sacred to make public, but the outline. I hurt someone I cared about. I had to learn what meekness actually means. God walked me through restoration, and it changed everything about how I see relationships and conflict and my own brokenness. You didn't cry, didn't perform, just told the truth simply. When you finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then Sarah, the same Sarah you had to call 6 months ago to own your part, said, "Thank you for sharing that. It makes me feel less alone in my own mess." Less alone. That's the gift, isn't it? When you're willing to be honest about your failures and your healing, it gives other people permission to be honest about theirs. Your vulnerability becomes a bridge. Your scars become a roadmap. Your story becomes an invitation. You can come back from this too. This morning, sitting on your porch with the sun climbing higher and the day stretching out ahead of you, you feel something you haven't felt in years. Contentment. Not the restless kind that's always looking for the next thing, the next achievement, the next validation. Deep contentment. The kind that comes from knowing who you are, flawed and loved, broken and being mended, scarred and still useful. The kind that comes from living in alignment with your values instead of in service to your image. You think about where you were 6 months ago, that 2:47 a.m. moment with the unsent apology, the paralyzing fear, the crushing shame. If you could go back and tell that version of you anything, what would you say? You'd say, press send. It's going to be hard, but you're going to make it. And on the other side of this obedience, there's a peace you can't even imagine right now. A purpose. A version of yourself you'll actually recognize as the person God's been calling you to be all along. You tell yourself, restoration isn't instant, it's not easy, but it's holy, and it's worth every uncomfortable conversation, every moment of vulnerability, every time you have to choose honesty over image, because what you're building on the other side isn't just a repaired relationship, it's a repaired soul, your soul, and that matters more than you know. Your phone buzzes again. It's them this time. The text says, "Random question. I'm planning a birthday thing next month, and I'd really love if you could come. No pressure, but you're invited." Your heart swells. 6 months ago, an invitation like this would have felt impossible. But here it is. Evidence that consistent faithfulness produces fruit. Evidence that restoration really does happen when you commit to the process. You text back, "I'd be honored. Thank you for including me." Then you set your phone down and close your eyes, feeling gratitude wash over you like that golden morning light. Thank you, God. Thank you for not letting me hide. Thank you for walking with me through every hard step. Thank you for Marcus and for them and for everyone who could have written me off but chose to stay. Thank you for teaching me what meekness really means. Thank you for restoration. You sit there for a long time, just breathing prayers of gratitude into the morning. And then so quietly you almost don't hear it. That familiar whisper returns one final time. Go and restore as I restored you. Restore with meekness. Go and restore. Not someday when you're fully healed. Not eventually when you've got it all figured out. Now. Today. With whatever wholeness you've been given so far. Because restoration isn't a destination, it's a way of life. It's how you walk through the world now. It's your reflex, your instinct, your default setting. When someone stumbles, you don't distance yourself or gossip or thank God it's not you. You remember. You remember what it felt like to be in the pit, and you reach down with the same gentleness someone reached down for you. You stand up, stretch, take your empty coffee cup inside. The day is waiting. Work and relationships and ordinary moments that are sacred if you pay attention. You shower, get dressed, grab your keys. Before you head out, you pause in front of the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and you say out loud, "Restore with meekness." Not as a reminder of failure, but as a mission statement, as an identity. You are someone who restores, someone who bears burdens, someone who speaks truth gently, someone who creates space for people to be fully human in your presence, someone who's been broken and healed and is now dangerous for the kingdom in the best possible way. At work, you notice a co-worker looking stressed. You stop by her desk. "Hey, you okay?" "You seem like maybe you're carrying something heavy." She looks up, surprised. Then her eyes well up. "Can we talk?" You nod. "Of course." "Want to grab coffee?" You spend your lunch hour just listening, not fixing, not advising unless she asks, just listening, being present, bearing witness to her pain. When you get back to your desk, she texts, "Thank you, I really needed that." You smile. This is the work now, the daily, ordinary, sacred work of restoration. That evening at small group, someone shares about a conflict they're navigating with a family member. Instead of offering platitudes, you share something you've learned. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just say, "I was wrong," with no qualifiers. It's terrifying, but it opens doors that nothing else can open. They nod slowly, like you've given them permission for something they've been too afraid to try. On the drive home, you pass the coffee shop where you met with them 6 months ago for that hard conversation. You smile. So much has changed since then. You've changed. Not into someone unrecognizable. You're still you, still learning, still growing. But you're you without the armor now. You without the desperate need to protect your image at all costs. You without the fear that being wrong makes you worthless. You pull into your driveway, turn off the engine, and sit for a moment, in the quiet. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own opportunities to practice meekness, its own chances to restore or be restored. But tonight, you're just grateful. Grateful to be alive, grateful to be learning, grateful to be useful, grateful that failure wasn't the end of your story, just the middle, the turning point, the place where God met you and said, "We're not done yet." Inside, you make dinner, eat slowly, enjoy the taste of food and the simple gift of having an appetite again. You remember the months when anxiety made everything taste like cardboard, when you could barely eat because your stomach was in constant knots. But that's over now. You're here now, present, grounded, whole in a way that includes your brokenness instead of denying it. Before bed, you open your journal, the one you started keeping 6 months ago when everything fell apart. You flip back through the pages, reading entries from August and September and October. The pain jumps off the page, the fear, the shame, the slow excavation of patterns, the hard conversations, the small victories, the setbacks, the gradual, almost imperceptible movement from drowning to swimming to walking on solid ground. Then you turn to a fresh page and write today's date, and beneath it, you write, "I am not who I was. I failed, and I let that failure form me instead of finish me. I learned what meekness really means, not weakness, but strength submitted to love. I learned that restoration is possible when you're willing to do the unglamorous work of consistency. I learned that my scars can become roadmaps for other people. I learned that God's love isn't conditional on my performance. I learned that community is both the place where we wound each other and the place where we heal each other. I learned that I can come back from this. And I did. I am. I'm still coming back. Every day, choosing truth over image, choosing presence over performance, choosing love over being right. And I'm grateful. So grateful. For all of it. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. Because they made me someone who can actually love people well. Someone who can hold space. Someone who can restore. Thank you, God. For everything. for not giving up on me, for restoration, for meekness, for this beautiful, ordinary, sacred life I get to live now. Amen. You close the journal, turn off the light, and settle into bed, and as sleep pulls you under, you hear it one last time, that voice that's walked with you through every step of this journey. Well done, beloved. Keep walking softly. I'm with you. Always. And you sleep, deep and dreamless and peaceful, the sleep of someone who's been restored, someone who's learning to restore others, someone who knows, bone deep, that restoration isn't a one-time event. It's a way of life, and you're living it. One day, one choice, one gentle step at a time. Prayer. Lord Jesus, thank you for restoring sinners like me. Thank you for not leaving me in my shame, for not giving up when I wanted to give up on myself. Give me meekness, not weakness, but your strength submitted to love. Give me honesty, not performance, but truth in the inward parts. Give me courage to press send, to show up, to make amends, to keep walking even when restoration feels slow. Heal what I broke. Use my scars to lift the fallen. Restore me so I can restore others. Make me someone who bears burdens, speaks truth gently, and creates space for people to be fully human. In your gentle, relentless, restoring name. Amen. Phrase, hurt owned, hope opened. Practice. If you haven't already, press send on that apology today. Make it specific. Name what you did, acknowledge the impact. Offer one concrete way you'll make it right. No buts, no ifs, just truth. Then text someone who's walked with wisdom and scars, someone like Marcus was for me. Ask them, will you walk with me through restoration this month? I need someone to ask me the hard questions. And finally, this week, look for someone who's stumbling. Don't wait until you're perfect. Just offer what you've been given. A listening ear, a gentle presence, the testimony that says you can come back from this. Restoration isn't something you wait to be ready for. It's something you step into with trembling hands and a willing heart. And God meets you there. Every single time. Restore with meekness.